Hello everyone. Today we'll be bringing you a review of the Uni-Ball Insight rollerball pen, fine point 0.7 millimeters. So, fluid writing is the main theme of this pen. It features the exclusive Uni-Flow ink system, which is advertised as providing consistent smoothness and color intensity. It also features the Uni Super Ink that helps prevent against check and document fraud by trapping the ink in the paper. As advertised by Uni-Ball, the ink is also quick drying, water resistant, archival quality, and acid free. The pen does have a visible ink supply, which Uni-Ball for some reason chose to call the inkometer. It's an interesting term to use. I'd imagine that's something the marketing department just came up with rather than just say visible ink supply as it's referred to on every other pen. But nevertheless, it is functional. It's a nice clear window all the way down the length of the barrel here, so you can see the ink. It does have these little hash marks on it, so you can kind of see exactly where it is. The pen is refillable. However, the refill is almost the entire pen here. As you can see, unscrew. All that's left is essentially the casing of the end of the barrel, and then the cap. So the point, the grip portion, and the entire refill portion, the refill is just an entire pen. The only other pen I've ever seen this done on is Uni-Ball's Vision Elite. It's almost exactly the same, except the Vision Elite grip has a raised diamond pattern for extra grip, whereas the Insight grip area is just smooth plastic. Let's take a look at the Vision Elite just to compare. So as you can see here, the two refills are almost identical. I actually do prefer the Vision Elite refill and the grip area of the Vision Elite. As I said, it has that diamond pattern there, which does provide extra grip and feels a little bit better in your hands as opposed to the this just smooth plastic area here. Why Uni-Ball chose to do this with a couple of pens and refills is beyond me. It doesn't seem very economical to replace all that every time you need to refill the ink, but I don't know, that's their choice there. So, without further ado, let's see how it writes. The cap portion here, I should talk about this real quick. Well, first of all, the clip feels good. It's kind of this curved area here that comes down a little closer where it actually clips in and has a little point there. So it clips in pretty firm. The plastic of the clip has give to it, but is not too weak, so it feels like this is a very tough clip. Could really withstand a lot of abuse and not break, and really clips on pretty strongly. However, the one thing I don't like about the cap, for when you are putting the cap on the tip, it clicks into place and it feels very secure. However, when you're going to write with it and you put it on the barrel, it doesn't actually click into place. It just kind of presses in there, and it's in there. It does press on, so it's not just loosely on there, but it doesn't press on very tight. So it's very easy to take on and off. Kind of didn't like that, because if you just kind of touch it a little bit, it'll just kind of go flying right off. Not flying off, I should say, but it comes off very easy. Easier than I would like it to be. Not as secure as you would like. So, now on with the writing. We'll notice right away it produces very bold, vibrant lines. They really stand out on the paper. pen has a decent feel, as you're right. It's not the smoothest, but I didn't really expect it to be. It's essentially what you'd expect for a rollerball pen. As for the comfort of the pen, I don't find it to be the most comfortable to hold in your hand. After just a few pages of writing, I found it's producing a little bit of strain. Like I said, there's really no grip. It's just a smooth plastic, so there's no actual grip or comfort portion here. So after a little bit of writing, I do find it produces some strain in your hand, so that's definitely a downside of the pen also. Also, even though I do like the dark, vibrant text that does come out with this ink, I do find that the ink flow seems to be a little bit too much. It's not horrible, but it is just slightly more than you'd like to come out. We don't get too much blobbing, which is good. I got minimal to none on that. No skipping either, really. It's just the ink seems to pour out a little bit faster than you'd like. And we'll talk more about that when we do smudge tests a little later. So let's take a look at that smearing test now. One second. Two seconds. Three seconds. Four. And 5 seconds. So as you can see, for the first 3 seconds we got a decent amount of smearing. 4 and 5 it seemed to trail off a little bit, but it still stayed, so we couldn't get it to go away completely. And we will come to that a little more in depth shortly. So let's see how it did in some writing prior. Much of the same in terms of the ink that it produces and how it looks and everything. Very dark and bold. Really stands out on the paper. Again, in the smear test is where it performed below average. 1 to 3 we got a heavy smearing. 4 and 5 a little less, but it did stay consistent. I should mention the bleed through. Despite how dark the text is, the bleed through was little to none, which was a pleasant surprise. I thought it was going to be a little more noticeable. So nothing really comes through. You can see the marks a little bit on the opposite side of the paper, but none of the ink actually seems to penetrate all the way through. And on the writing we just did, this is also the same. Again, looks like nothing gets all the way through to the other side. Pen also does come in blue and red. Bought a 4-pack with 2 blacks, 1 blue and 1 red. We wrote a little bit with the 2 colors here. And we notice more of the same. Even with the colors, the lines that it produces are very vibrant, very bold. The colors are very rich, so it really stands out on the paper. No skipping, no real blobbing, despite the kind of heavier ink flow than we would like. Bleed through is essentially none for the colors also. So, The one last thing we're going to kind of revisit was, like, say, the biggest downside of the pen, which was how it performed on the smear test. So we did a little bit more extended smear test here. As you can see, 10, 15, 20 seconds, even through up to 25, 30, 35. We got some consistent smearing all the way through. It wasn't much. So after about 5 seconds, the smearing really kind of sort of levels out. But it does consistently still smear if we do touch the paper within the first 35 seconds. And we even went up all the way to a minute. And even through a minute, we still did get that pretty much that same consistent smearing. So that was a pretty big downside to the pen. The fact that after a full 60 seconds, we would still get the smearing, and it would be pretty much the same amount of smearing as we got from around 5 or 6 seconds. So, Uni-Ball does claim that the ink is quick drying. I would have to disagree with that claim, however, because if after 60 seconds we're getting any smearing at all, that's pretty bad. So, overall, it's a decent rollerball pen. Performs pretty well. I'd say it's around average in a lot of categories. It kind of stands out in that, the text that it produces is very dark, very bold. And despite that, doesn't really do too much blobbing or no skipping. So, that's a plus in how it looks. The biggest downside to the pen is the fact that the ink will just smear for so long. And like I said, I think that's a product of a little bit too much ink kind of coming out onto the paper. It's not terrible that it blobs. I mean, we really didn't get any, but it is enough to the point where if you touch it even up to a minute and beyond, you're going to get some smearing, and especially if you touch it within the first 5 seconds, you're going to get a lot of smearing. The only other downsides to the pen that I really noticed were the fact that the grip portion is not the most comfortable, so it does produce a little bit of strain in your hand over time, and this silly refill, which is essentially the entire pen. So there you have it. It's a good pen, not great. Has some positives in the look of the lines it produces, very bold and vibrant, but some negatives in the comfort and the time it takes the ink to dry. So, thanks for watching.